Hey everybody, Steve Prziborowski here. Welcome to episode 14 of How to Excel at Fire Department Promotional Exams. Episode 14 is going to discuss the next step in the process. My fire chief does not want to promote me. What are my options? So let's get going. As a reminder, my website, code3firetraining.com, has a lot of great free information related to promotional preparation, officer development, as well as leadership and training information. So lots of great information for all ranks of personnel, regardless of what you want to be or what you're preparing for. Even if you just want to be the best at your current rank, there's information there that can be beneficial. So as a reminder, these webisodes are based upon one of the 3 books I've had published, How to Excel at Fire Department Promotional Exams. Available off my website, code3firetraining.com. So, in the last episode, number 13, we discussed that you can't seem to pass the promotional exam or the fire chief keeps passing you over. And again, as I mentioned in the last episode, I don't want to sound negative. I don't want to sound mean. I don't want to sound pessimistic because I'm not usually that type of person. I'm usually very positive. I'm usually the glass is half full versus half empty. But I'd be remiss if I did not at least prepare or expose you to some of those challenges that you may face. Because as I mentioned, very few people ever get promoted on the first time, let alone get hired on the first time. Usually all of us, myself included, take multiple exams to get hired and then get promoted. Excuse me. So let's focus on your options if your fire chief seems to just not want to promote you. So you've made the list, but now maybe chief keeps passing you over. I mean, at some point, you got to look in the mirror and say, God, I think the writing's on the wall here. And that's why I'm sharing this, because I do get a lot of folks from around the country reach out to me and ask me this question. And they're very frustrated, like, the chief keeps passing me over. And of course, my first question to them is, have you asked them why? Because in some systems, the civil service rules require the chief to put in writing why they're passing you over. I mean, I think it's a good thing because then it allows you to focus on something. Well, in a lot of systems, the chief doesn't have to do anything all short of just saying, you know what, I'm not going to promote you. I'm going to promote Lisa instead, or I'm going to promote Tom instead. You're still on the list though, but you're not going to get promoted. Yeah, so, but it is nice to at least ask the chief, and hopefully the communication between the two of you is there. The relationship is there to at least ask the question, like, Chief, what do I need to do? Do I need to finish my degree? Do I need to quit being an asshole? Do I need to quit, I don't know, get some more experience in different parts of the city, work in different firehouses? What do I got to do, Chief? You know, and again, hopefully you have that good mentoring fire chief that is able to put it on the table and let you know. But again, I know that there's some that aren't, and some obviously for legal reasons may not want to share that reason. So it sucks, but you know what? You got options. So I shared a little bit ago that I get people to reach out. Now this really, I guess, came to my radar screen when a buddy of mine from the Midwest, buddy of mine on the East Coast, I've had Midwest, East Coast, all parts of the country, but this was from, I'm sorry, the first one was from the East Coast. He reached out, he is very frustrated that he keeps taking the captain's examination, but it seems like his fire chief does not like him because he just can't seem to be promoted. And I go, well, you know, have you talked to him? And of course the answer was, well, yeah, but he doesn't really give me any information. Like, okay, that doesn't help at all. And he goes, I keep taking the test and I keep making the list, but he keeps, you know, I'm number 1, he goes to number 2, or if I'm number 3, he'll promote 1 and 2, then 4. And I go, does your civil service rules have any rules about documenting or sharing? No, he can do whatever he wants to. Okay, that sucks, but it is what it is. But I get the frustration. Here's my advice. You don't have a lot of options. I go, here's some options. I go, number 1, you can try to outlive or outlast the fire chief and hope the next fire chief feels differently about you. You know, that happens sometimes. I remember testing for one department in the Central Valley of California. I came out number 2 on the list for firefighter almost 30 years ago, and the fire chief didn't hire me, and I'm okay with it. That department was not meant to be. Great department, great people. I'm good friends with the fire chief now, but I remember that fire chief at the time had been there like probably 20 years as fire chief, it seemed like. Well, fast forward about 20 years later, a buddy of mine gets hired at that department as the deputy chief, second in charge. And I went to his badge pinning and I pointed at the fire chief. I go, is that so-and-so? He's like, yeah. I go, he interviewed me about 20 years ago. So I go, how long has he been fire chief? And my buddy's like, God, he's been on the department like 50 years. He's been chief for like 40 years. There are those rare exceptions that the chief may be on the department and in the position even longer than you'll even be on the job. So I know sometimes that's not a good option. But as I shared with my buddy, I go, hey, you can try to outlive or outlast the fire chief and hope the next one feels differently about you. He goes, nah, this guy's been in the place for, 10 years. He ain't going anywhere. He goes, I'll retire before he goes. Well, then that's one challenge. But sometimes that's the case. I mean, think about that though. How many fire chiefs last more than 5 years? And I don't mean that negatively, but in most systems, big city, even small departments, mid-sized departments, to find a fire chief that lasts more than 5 years before they resign, before they retire, before they go to another department, 5 years is a long time as a fire chief or even a department head. Police chief, try about maybe 2 years in most cities, I think. Yeah, no, thank you. But that may be an option for you, okay? If it's not an option, here's the challenge. If your health and wellness is going to be affected because of this, then you know what? I mean, if you think, well, you know what, I got 20 years to go on the job and my fire chief, he or she's got 5 years, 4 years, I can outlive them. But again, when I talk about health and wellness, if you just keep taking the test and getting passed over, and you're going to do that for the next maybe 5 years, you can bang your head against the wall and get more enjoyment out of that. I mean, it's at what point do you just, I don't know. I'm not saying give up, throw in the towel, because there's other options I'll talk about here shortly, but you got to take a deep look in the mirror of, what's more important to you, promotion or the health and wellness? Because chances are, if you're bitter enough to reach out to a buddy like myself across the country and, vent to me, which I'm good with, chances are you're also doing it to your friends, your coworkers, your crew, your family members. At some point, they're going to say, dude, just get over it. Either just stop the promotion process or find a way to either pass it or whatever else. I'll talk about the other options here. Some other options. If you can't outlive the chief, like I told my buddy, try to convince the fire chief that maybe you are the best person and, more importantly, the best fit for the position. I discussed fit in previous episodes. Maybe the fire chief doesn't know you as well as you think they do or as well as they think you do. And again, it's communication, and some chiefs are great at communication, some are not. Just like some captains and some firefighters are great at, some are not. I mean, hey, communication requires two people, and sometimes even the two people can't even do that. So maybe you can try to convince them, but that only is if the fire chief gives you a reason. Like if the fire chief tells you flat out, hey, I'm not promoting you because you're a jackass, or because of this episode here 3 months ago, because of that episode 9 months ago, because of that a year ago. It's your job now to convince him or her that you're no longer that person. You've learned from that. You've moved on, but you better convince them through your actions, not just your words. Now, as I mentioned, you got to try to find their reasons, but again, you may not get those reasons why. I shared, try proving them wrong through your actions, if at all possible. Sometimes it's just a numbers game. Don't take it personal. I've known many people that died. Well, I died number one on the list. Okay, did anyone else get promoted? No, because there was no retirements. Well, you know what? Hey, at least you're number one, but stuff happens, shit happens. Not everyone always gets promoted. Just because there's a list doesn't mean there'll be promotees off that list. Happens to all of us, been there, done that. So sometimes it is a numbers game, and sometimes it is about timing, and sometimes you least expect it. Maybe the fire chief retires or has a change of heart, or maybe there's so many positions available and you're the last one on the list, they got no choice. I mean, who knows? Some other options. You may love your department, but again, your health and wellness. Let's say you want that next step on the ladder, that next rung. That's what your career aspirations are. Well, you know what? Especially some smaller departments, a lot of times there's not a lot of promotions. I mean, I know a lot of people that work for like a 1-station fire department or a 2-station fire department where you're lucky to get one captain's promotion every 5-7 years. Battalion chief, maybe one every 10 years. I mean, they're far and few because, there's just not a lot of opportunities. So maybe if that's your situation or you can't convince the chief, take a look at other examinations. I mean, there are a lot of departments, and thanks to the internet today, and thanks to not just the internet, because you can Google whatever, fire chief job, battalion chief job, captain job. There's also testing notification services out there. There's a lot of testing notification services out there where you can pay a fee like, you know, $100 or something a year, or monthly fees or whatever. And that same money you'd be spending on coffee at Starbucks or Phil's or Pete's, maybe cut back on the coffee a little bit if you're worried about money, and maybe put that toward, I can't give up coffee, you know, as I'm shaking and caffeine fits. Hey, do what you got to do, but if you want something bad enough, you can make it happen. But like I said, there's some companies out there. Firecareers.com, that's www.firecareers.com, is probably one of the best out there. I've used them for almost 30, probably 30 years plus. I don't get paid for endorsing them. I just think they're a valuable service to give you nationwide testing opportunities. Departments, all sizes, all types, all positions. But check them out, firecareers.com, to get some more information. But that's one of the ways to do it. You may have to go outside, you know, take a look around. There's many people around the country that have successfully been hired as fire chiefs in other departments, deputy chiefs, assistant chiefs, battalion chiefs, captains, even engineers, or even just firefighters. Hey, if you're that good, you'll be that good somewhere else. You know, you may have to try a little bit, but there's a lot of people that successfully go to other departments. And sometimes that's the best thing that's ever happened to them because of the toxic environment, maybe that their fire chief was doing to that department at the time, or to them, at least personally. And as strange as this is, I've seen many people leave their department for, say, a battalion chief test, or a deputy chief or assistant chief position, or even a fire chief position in a neighboring department, or heck, a department out of state, only to come back 5 or 6 or 10, 20 years later to take the fire chief's position. And you're like, how did that happen? Well, maybe because of the city manager at the time, the city council, whatever, it wasn't your time. But as long as you left on good terms, and they see what you've done when you were gone, of, hey, well, yeah, you left as a battalion chief, but then you got promoted to deputy chief, you became a fire chief in that department, you stayed successful as a fire chief for 5 years, didn't get into trouble, had a great relationship with the union, great relationship with the city administration, the city council. Hey, you know what? Now it's time to probably have you come back because you already know the department, you grew up here. Strange things happen. Moral of the story, never burn your bridges, never shut any doors, or don't leave a gasoline can next to the bridge when you burn that bridge, because, or cross that bridge, because you don't want to burn that bridge. You may have to come back at some point. But here's something to think about too. That grass, as they say, is not always greener on the other side. You may think that's the best thing of moving to the other department, when in fact, maybe staying at your current employer, even if you're not in the position that you wanted, maybe it's the best thing. But again, sometimes you have to take risk, and many people have successfully taken risks. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but have your stuff in a mitt, have your stuff ready to go. And if you do jump out to another department, have an exit strategy. Just like every good fire chief, when they take the position for the first time, every brand new fire chief is usually taught, don't get too comfortable in the position. Don't expect to last more than 5 years. Always have your resume up to date, your references up to date, and basically always have a resignation letter in the top of your drawer that you can always execute at a moment's notice. And don't try to have too many ties that you can't walk away from. And you're like, huh? Hey, for anyone that's a fire chief or a department head as an at-will employee, that hits home, I'm hoping, because that's the reality, especially at that level. Or like I told my buddy, you know what? Hey, you can give up and throw in the towel. Go for it. Enjoy your current position. You know what? Sometimes that's maybe the best thing to happen for you. There's days I wanted to be a fire chief, and there's also days I look back and go, you know what? Deputy chief is not a bad gig. You know, again, I'm not saying I would never take a fire chief position, but again, I've tried, I've given it my shot. It hasn't worked out, and I see what fire chiefs go through. Not that my job is easy by any means. It's not. It's challenging in its own right. But hey, you know what? Who knows what the future will be? Who knows what will be in store for my future? I'm just fortunate to be alive, the right side of the dirt, as they say, and being able to do stuff like this. But here's the thing: if you give up and throw in the towel, then a phrase that I like to use that my wife taught me is, now they win, you lose, or maybe not. So if you give up, I know a lot of people go, well, I'm going to stop taking the promotion exam. I'll show them. What did you show them? You showed them your true colors. You showed them that you're just going to be a crybaby and leave. Okay. Or take your toys and leave, as they say. But again, you lose, but then again, you may not lose, because it may be the best thing for your sanity, depending on the time. And you know what? God forbid, anything can happen. Even though you think that fire chief may be there for 20 more years, I don't mean to be, I don't mean that, I don't mean to think any bad thoughts against anyone, but hey, things happen. People retire, people drop dead, people get injured, people get illnesses, people have health problems, people decide, hey, you know what, I got a better opportunity next door, or I got to move to take care of my parents that are dying halfway across the country, and guess what, I'm retiring. All those things can and do happen, but I know sometimes people go, well, God, that never happens in my department. Hey, you know what, you don't win everything. So my thoughts, though, is quit complaining, lose the bitterness, lose the baggage, and accept the reality. And I don't mean that in a defeatist or negative way, but try to be positive about it, because the last thing your crew or the last thing anybody on the job, the last thing any customers you deal with, last thing your family, last thing your friends want to deal with is you moping around going, this is bullshit, blah, blah, this sucks, and I'm just going to blah, 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 woe is me. Hey, get over yourself. And you know what? It's okay. Not everyone is meant to promote. If I never become a fire chief, I'll probably look back and go, hey, I gave it my best shot. I tried. I wasn't considered to be a good fit. I know I was qualified because I made the testing process. I know I made it to a short single-digit number that got at least, move toward the end there. I mean, that's still pretty good, more than many people do. But there's days that maybe my skill set is not meant for that position. Maybe my skill set is better meant for deputy chief, because every time we go up a rank, it's a different skill set. What a firefighter does is not 100% the same as an engineer or a captain, and definitely not the same as a fire chief. No disrespect, it's just different positions. So remember, as I've shared before, nothing in your career is a slam dunk until you're retired. So I've also shared, and I think it's worth sharing again, that it's not the successes that define you, it's how you handle the failures. So the best test of your true character is how you handle the adversity that will be thrown at you during life. Again, it happens to all of us. Don't think, oh, it's just me, 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 me. No, no, no. Start reaching out and talking to people. It happens to everybody at some point, especially the most successful people. Take a look at some of the most successful people in sports, in business, and you'll see a lot of failures. People that didn't make their high school sports team then became Hall of Fame pro athletes. And you're like, what? They did, yeah, they got cut from the high school team or the college team, but for some reason when they hit the pros, Hall of Fame material. Or famous actors that didn't get certain parts, or famous business owners that went bankrupt but then built up a business. It happens. The ball's in your court. So as always, thank you very much for the gift of your time. Here's my contact information, my social media footprint as well too. Please feel free to reach out if I can ever be of assistance to you at some point in the future. I'm a resource, and you know what? I'm also an ear too. So when you're feeling frustrated, don't take it out on your fire chief. Feel free to call up me, and if you want to vent, and all I ask is be careful what you ask for, because if you say, hey, Steve, I want your advice on this, I'll be honest. You may not like what I have to say, but I'll be honest. I hope you can at least appreciate that, because if you can take it from me, then you can take it from a fire chief. So until the next time, take care, be safe, keep marching in the right forward direction. All right, take care. Have a great day, everybody.